This is the, I guess you call it the piece de resistance, the study that was done published in JAMA, showing beyond a doubt that under study conditions, the use of testosterone does in fact increase strength. Looking at the left side here, comparing, these are subjects who are not exercising, that the difference is dramatic. Testosterone versus the placebo. In every case, whether it's bench press strength or quadriceps area, triceps area, fat-free squatting strength, testosterone makes a huge difference. Even when you combine that with exercise, the differences are not as great, but still, exercise combined with testosterone can still have a dramatic effect on strength. So there is a real effect here pharmacologically. This is the triceps.
Can't get your triceps.
It doesn't even pay to work out on the triceps.
Just testosterone. It hasn't.
I mean, you're absolutely right, this is the seminal paper. I mean,
Yeah.
this changed everything, because prior to this, I mean, people would actually go to high school athletes and they would say that steroids don't work.
Yeah.
And people, they'd say it with a straight face, because there hadn't been a definitive study that said, oh, come on.
Well, that reminds me, when I spoke to that group in Dearborn,
Did you say that?
I said that.
Yeah.
I said, there's no evidence. And they easily knew more than I did.
Later, Arnold Schwarzenegger, governor.
Testing for anabolic steroids. One figure that you will often see is the T/E ratio. That's the ratio of testosterone to epitestosterone in the blood. Epitestosterone is made from a pathway different from that which makes testosterone. So if you beg the question, if an athlete is taking testosterone, how do you know that it's not testosterone that's made naturally in the individual? This is how they tell. By comparing epitestosterone levels, which is made by a different pathway, independent pathway from that which winds up with testosterone. So the dividing line usually is considered 6. If you have a T/E ratio greater than 6, then that probably will be sign for doing extended testing on you. And then there is a newer method which gives you the ratio of C13 in the steroid to C12. What does that have to do with? Well, synthetic steroid, like you take Winstrol, for example, or Decadurabolin, these are steroids that are made semi-synthetically. They get a steroid nucleus from a plant. Oftentimes it's from the sweet potato family. They make gobs of steroids, and you can synthetically convert from the sweet potato steroid to make semi-synthetic steroids. The plant, being the origin of these semi-synthetic steroids, gives you a, was it higher or lower? A lower amount of C13, I guess it would be, compared to C12. So they can tell from the C13 to C12 ratio whether it's a synthetic steroid there or even synthetic testosterone. Then we have designer drugs. Of course, the classic designer drug probably is the one that Parkinson's disease. What was that? MPTP?
MPTP.
MPTP, you all know the story about that. And there are a number of designer drugs. These are agents which are synthesized in somebody's laboratory. They perhaps have never been reported in the chemical literature before, and they do have anabolic effects, and they won't be detected because they're not otherwise known. There's no mass spec database in which you can find these, so they can escape detection. Well, now all these newer designer drugs are in the database because they're coming out with tests as rapidly as these drugs are being made. Here's one, this tetrahydrogestrinone, THG, is a fairly well-known designer drug now. It's called the Clear. It's a colorless liquid, or make a solution out of it. And this is what Barry Bonds said that his trainer rubbed on him. And he got muscular because his trainer rubbed this on him. Okay. And he testified to that effect. And there's you all heard of SERMs, of course, steroidal, what did I go? The estrogen receptor modulators, forget what, selective estrogen receptor modulators. These are selective androgen receptor modulators. And this one is called andarine. It's a well-known compound now, and other compounds of this category are now finding their way on the street as SARMs, as designer drugs. Well, this is a book that came out, I forget the year, but maybe about 8 years ago or so. Talked about BALCO. BALCO was the Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative. Worked out of the San Francisco Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco area. And their reason for existence was to make these designer drugs. They're the ones that made this drug, the Clear. And you see Barry Bonds, I think this must be Alex Rodriguez, it's a Yankee. Anyway, Barry Bonds, you can't miss his name there, that talked about, exposed BALCO, this company that was putting out these designer drugs and providing them to athletes like Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds, when all this broke, there was a grand jury investigation of the BALCO operation. Obviously, they were put out of business. And the grand jury summoned Barry Bonds to testify. And that's where Bonds said, well, all I know is that the trainer rubbed this stuff on me and the whole, got all this muscle as a result. Well, the grand jury didn't believe him and indicted him for lying to a grand jury. And you may know that grand juries are specifically set up for investigating specific cases. And in this case, lying to a grand jury is a felony. Even misleading. You don't even have to lie, but misleading a grand jury is a felony. Well, Bonds was charged with lying to a grand jury. It's gone to two courts, two appellate courts, and the last thing I looked at last night, it's still out on appeal. So even though he's been charged, he hasn't been convicted. Oh, I'm sorry, he was convicted. I'm sorry, he was. He was convicted of lying to a grand jury, but now it's out on appeal. That's what it is. So who knows how long that will drag in the courts before anything ever comes of it, if ever comes of it.
Are any of the designer, like testosterones, patented?
Are they what?
Patented?
Probably not. Because by their very nature, why would you patent something if you can have a monopoly on the drug without having to go through a patent to get it? Patent gives you a monopoly, but you got to go through the process. These are street drugs, basically. So it wouldn't be.
It would be taking it to the next level, I think. Like,
Well, who would patent a company that wants to make
illegal company that makes it?
yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. Well, let's finish up with the legislation that affects performance-enhancing drugs. There was the Androgenic Anabolic Steroid Control Act of 1990, which made this group of drugs Schedule 3. Then in 1994, the DSHEA law, which covers a lot of the alternative, complementary alternative medications that you can currently buy at your health food stores, covers things like dehydroepiandrosterone, DHEA, and andro. Both of these are precursors to steroids. So these were made, you could buy these over the counter, in effect, at that time. Creatine, ephedra, and other things. But this is what, these two compounds is what caused a lot of concern, because although testosterone may be Schedule 3, obviously needing a prescription, you could go out and buy these two guys, which are converted to testosterone metabolically, without a prescription. Just go to your normal neighborhood health food store. That's when the Anabolic Androgenic Steroid Control Act of 2004 came about. And that caused andro to be put on a prescription-only basis. So we have these two drugs, these two compounds, both of which are converted to testosterone metabolically, but only one of them is covered by the 2004 Act. DHEA is exempted from the Act.
Why is it?
Very good question. And I can only speculate. But the major manufacturer of DHEA is located in the state of Utah. And who is the senator from the state of Utah? Orrin Hatch. And what does Orrin Hatch's son do? He's a high official in the company that makes this. Now, I'm not making any accusations, but, you know, if it looks like a duck. So that's exempted. And you can buy DHEA. Well, I go into here on risks and adverse effects. You can read about these. Well, this young man, football player, was on steroids, dropped dead of a heart attack during a game. Suspicion is that it was due to the steroid. But in a lot of these cases, probably most of these cases, you really don't know for sure what caused the death or what caused the cancer. For example, mental health effects of steroids. The so-called roid rage, steroid rage, play on road rage, violent behavior as a result of the use of androgenic steroids, and some other psychological effects from the use. A lot of these are just anecdotal.
The Basson paper, for example, the one that sort of was really the best evidence for increased strength and muscle mass, they didn't push the doses beyond something that was clinically safe, but they didn't see any evidence of any roid rage. There's no indication in the patient reports or any of their next of kin or relatives or friends or that said, oh, yeah, roid rage happened. No psychological side effects. But they weren't taken anywhere near what real weightlifters will take or bodybuilders.
Or Lyle Alzado.
Yeah.
Lyle Alzado was, I forget, I seem to remember New York Giants, played football player, and this is...
For the Raiders, I thought.
Raiders?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But he died in 1992, as you see, and prior to his death in 1991, he wrote an article for Sports Illustrated. And as you can see there, he said, I started taking anabolic steroids in 1969, never stopped. It was addicting, mentally addicting. Now I'm sick, I'm scared. 90% of the athletes I know are on the stuff. We're not born to be 300 pounds or jump 30 feet. But all the time I was taking steroids, I knew that they were making me play better, making him more aggressive, he felt. And, it's sort of personal testimonies like this that lead one to conclude that maybe there's something to it, but we don't really know for sure. Obviously, you can't run controlled studies on people to determine that, and it's all anecdotal evidence. And then this guy, Chris Benoit, who killed his wife and his young son and then hanged himself. His body contained 10 times the normal level of testosterone, as well as Xanax and hydrocodone, blah, 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 blah.
Some antidepressants too. I think he had some SSRIs
Oh.
in there too. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
really?
Yeah. He was a busy guy.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary
So-
a while ago saying that all professional wrestlers have huge drug problems, just poly substance abuse across the board, everything.
Yeah.
Can't blame that on
Makes sense.
testosterone.
Well, yeah, but, it's not a scientific experiment. That's the only way you find out, is from individual testimonials, if you want to call them that, like that. So people lend themselves to be guinea pigs, through their behavior, and we can draw our own conclusions, I suppose. Well, that's all I have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're gonna get this time, any, one question?
Oh,
we have
sure,
for him?
yeah.
Just, we're pretty much at 3 o'clock, but, actually, I'll pose one question. You can think about it, or you can answer it right away. And it's probably gonna be something we're gonna revisit. At the end of the course, we're gonna, the last week of the course, we're gonna have a debate. And we got a couple of topics that are sort of floating around. I need to reintroduce this to the group so that, oh, that's right, we had that. And one of the topics that I think we're going to debate, and we'll leave it open for the students to sort of choose, but sort of pose a bit of a dilemma, because the Basson paper clearly demonstrates that high therapeutic levels of steroids increases muscle mass, increases strength, increases performance. And if you look at the side effects, there's not a whole lot of side effect profiles that sort of clinically monitored high therapeutic doses. So here's the debate point. If you presume that emergency responders like firefighters And, well, I guess mostly firefighters, maybe police, but mostly firefighters who are supposed to do like superhuman physical strength kinds of things to save lives. If you presume that even when they're optimally fit from exercise, they would be even better if they took steroids. So the debate question is, you put it in the context of an affirmed, you would affirm that professionals in the life-saving business, like firefighters and emergency responders, should be allowed and encouraged to take steroids under medical advisement in order to do their jobs better. So that's the debate
It
topic.
seems to me that I heard that very proposal being made.
Really? Where?
I was listening to a radio newscast, and somebody was making, I can't remember where I heard it. Usually it would be on WWJ or WJR, which I usually get my news from. And
Interesting.
somebody was making that recommendation.
Okay. It's out there already. Anyway, so what would you think?
What would I
Just,
think?
maybe you don't have to offer it now. Maybe you can come back and.
Well,
be
I'd say-
one of the panel.
What
Maybe one
what
of
are the
extra
liabilities? What are the liabilities? For example, suppose somebody gets liver cancer who's been given these drugs. Is the governmental agency, which we required or gave them the option of taking the drug, are they liable?
Would they sign a release?
I don't
Where do
know.
we stop though? Why don't we start gene therapy and?
Well, that's
Stop.
a good
In the
point.
army, I mean, we can dope them up on all kinds of
Right.
crap and we can have
Oh,
super soldiers.
yeah, we gotta go military.
Then, you know,
Well, that's where the debate can go.
Well, that's an
And John
interesting
Claude
point.
Van Damme comes into play.
But I think I have heard that
Make it a random.
argument
Being
advanced.
human.
Just like I was hearing,
That gun slide was.
I heard a news report that somebody was advocating, since we have all these heroin doses, I guess it's naloxone that
I actually have to go on, sorry.
they were
I don't mean to be
advocating.
rude.
And then I hear Eric Holder saying now they want, the federal government wants emergency responders to have the capacity to administer naloxone in emergency.
Yeah.
That's probably a little closer to reality
Sure.
because naloxone is a tremendous drug for that.
I think it's apples and oranges.
Yeah. Anyway. Anyway,
Sweet potato.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Well, I'm glad we didn't get closed today.
What is it?
I thought they were going to close the university.
Oh, I know.
And then I thought, well, they've already had 3 closures.
A lot were closed. Like a lot of
Yeah.
other schools.
They've had 3 closures this semester.
Yeah.
Do they want to close another one?
I knew it wouldn't be closed.